Hi guys, welcome or welcome back. Today we'll be going through all the books that I will hopefully, more than likely, maybe a bit presumptuously, read this summer. I did get to almost all the books for my spring TBR, so I have a good feeling about this one. And that's not just because this is all the reading material I brought with me to my parents' house where I will be residing for the summer. No, that is why. But y'all know I'm a tried and true mood reader, so I don't necessarily force myself to stick to these TBRs. Life's too short to follow TBRs, am I right? But I do try to include books in these videos that have been on my radar recently and I'm planning on reading soon. Alright, enough said, let's get into what I'll be reading for the foreseeable future. At least until I go book shopping, which we all know is going to happen. I may be a year late to when everyone was reading this, but I promise you this is the summer that I will read The Summer I Turned Pretty trilogy by Jenny Han. The To All the Boys I Loved Before books are some of my favorite YA romances. Those books are like a cozy warm hug. There's something you keep coming back to because they're so comforting, so wholesome. When I do get to this trilogy, I'm planning on reading them back to back, so I'm thinking about filming a reading vlog. Let me know if you'd be interested in seeing that. I also always appreciate a book or series with an adaptation that I can binge after reading, even if it takes me a while to get around to doing that. Like, I do enjoy adaptations and seeing the similarities and differences between two different takes on the same story. But then again, watch TV or read. My priorities are going to have to align with reading. Can you blame me? But the To All the Boys I've Loved Before, that is a mouthful. That series, the adaptation was pretty good. Not better than books, but it was pretty solid. And I did rewatch it, at least 3 times. I believe Netflix has just released a spin-off that follows Kitty, Laura Jean's sister, and I'm wondering, Jenny Han, where are the books? I need more books in that universe, okay? In the meantime, I'm hoping that the series will give me the same feeling that To All the Boys I Loved Before gave me, and I want to see what all this talk about regarding Team Jeremiah and, I'm blanking, what's the other one's name? Conrad. I try to stay pretty relevant with popular thriller authors because I hope that I can be a trustworthy source for thriller recommendations and reviews. Someone that you're like, that's Sarah girl. She knows what's up in the thriller genre. And I have been hearing so much talk about this thriller author right here, Frida McFadden. Y'all have been hyping her up, and I am experiencing FOMO. But I'm not sure if The Locked Door is the thriller of hers that I want to start with, just because the synopsis reminds me a lot of another thriller that I wasn't the biggest fan of. That might not be fair though. I might just be pushing my disappointment of this other book onto The Locked Door when I haven't even read it. From my understanding, this follows a surgeon whose patients start to get murdered in the same manner that her father used to kill women in their basement. So she is like the #1 suspect now because apparently serial killing runs in the DNA now. But the police have nothing on her as long as they don't look in her basement. I'm hoping that this isn't a straight up serial killer thriller where there's no motivation behind the kills, because typically thrillers where someone's going on like a killing heyday for no reason or for some minute reason isn't going to interest me. Those thrillers are just kind of bland to me. I want to know the motivation behind the kills. I want to know what drove someone to commit such a horrific act. You catch my drift? But we will see how this goes. If you recommend another Frida McFadden to start with, I'll try to get my hands on that first. I need to go faster with these books if we want to get through all of them before the end of summer. Another author I've been sleeping on is Tiffany D. Jackson. This is The Weight of Blood, which is supposedly a Carrie retelling, but made YA with examination on racism and privilege included. Now I have no idea how that whole Carrie story goes, but from the synopsis of this book, it sounds like after a secret is revealed about our protagonist Maddie, she is viciously bullied, but then at prom she potentially exacts her revenge. Something clearly is going to go down at prom that's going to make her bullies ever regret bullying her in the first place. If you couldn't tell from the cover, this is a YA horror, and I've never read anything from that subgenre, so I'm excited to see what all that is about. Love this cover, by the way. Stunning. Alright, I've been envisioning myself reading this next book ever since it was initially announced, really. That is Something Wilder. I believe I have like 3 other Christina Laurens on my TBR, but I have not read them because I've been waiting to read this first. I've been anticipating this novel, it feels like, for so long. Oh my god, it literally just started to rain. The universe is like, yeah, no, summer, not gonna happen. It's still spring. Set in the very summery Red Rock Canyons, this rom-com takes place over an adventure-based treasure hunt, and with all of Christina Lauren, something's probably going to go wrong. I'm expecting some mayhem, some hijinks. I love a good adventure story that takes me on an adventure from my couch. I've heard mixed things about this one, but I've enjoyed the Christina Laurens I've read fairly enough, so I have high hopes. Christina Lauren books are just fun, feel-good books to me. They're not something I read for deep intellectual nuance, but rather something I read for a fun, cheesy, swoony time. And sometimes at the end of the day, after a long day, that's what you need. Mary Jane by Jessica Anya Blah is a book that everyone has been raving about. I, however, am interested in figuring out why this girl is named after shoes. Kind of iconic, kind of strange, kind of intriguing. I'm guessing it's an ode to the time period in which they were popular or something like that. Mary Jane is a coming of age story that follows a 14-year-old girl who gets hired to work as a nanny for a family that is vastly different from her own. And so we follow her as she balances these two differing lives. I'm trying my best to explain these books, but obviously I have not read them. Yes, I've been saving this for the summer solely because of the cover. Are we surprised? Not really. I've done crazier things. Every few months, I like to read an Agatha Christie, specifically one of her Hercule Poirot novels, whenever I want a book akin to playing Clue. Whenever I want to play detective alongside the detective and figure out who's lying, who has motives, and who ultimately is the murderer. So Death on the Nile is the Agatha Christie I brought with me to read over the summer. This novel takes place over a cruise. Instantly, I'm getting summer vibes. Where Lynette Ridgway, a young stylish passenger on board, has been shot. In my mind, I'm thinking like an Alexis Rose type character, but I don't know, that could just be me. And so we follow the infamous Mr. Poirot, who was initially just trying to take a little vacation on this cruise, but quickly finds himself lead detective as he untangles all of the clues that led to Lynette's dismay. You know the theory that people rewatch TV shows or movies because the predictability is comforting? That's kind of how I feel about Agatha Christie Hercule Poirot novels, because although I don't know how the books are going to end, I know what I'm getting into. I know the story's overall formatting, which has not failed me yet. Vow of Thieves by Mary E. Pearson. I'm hoping now that school's out, I will miraculously gain the willpower to read this. It sounds like I don't want to read this. I really do, but it just took me so long to get through the first novel, and so I'm just a little anxious to start this because I don't know how long it's going to take me. I know, who cares? I care, apparently. Ellen Hildebrand is one of my go-tos for whenever I'm in the mood for a character-focused read, so I knew I wanted to have one of hers with me over the summer. Golden Girl, I've actually heard not much about, but I like how from the synopsis it sounds like it plays around with the afterlife, which I feel is pretty unique and definitely intrigues me, because we basically follow this woman Vivienne who unfortunately gets into a car accident and ascends to the beyond, where she is granted 3 nudges that essentially allow her to change events on Earth. And while her loved ones grieve and try to live life without her, they're also dealing with their individual struggles. And so Vivienne has to think carefully how and when to use these nudges and whom to use them on. Ellen Hildebrand's immersive writing style always draws me back to her books. You know she's a good author when she can make doing mundane activities, such as making a sandwich, interesting to read. So I'm excited to dive into another one of her novels. The longer a book sits on my TBR, the more I want to read it, which is kind of counterintuitive because why have I put it off to read for so long if I have been really wanting to read it? My life. One big juxtaposition. So sometimes for these TBRs, I choose a few books that I've owned for a while but I have not gotten around to reading yet because I keep thinking about them. And by including them in these TBRs, I'm more likely to read them. All that to say, that is the case with this next book, The Girl in 6E by A.R. Torre. Even though I've heard reviews ranging from, my god, this book was so disappointing, to, if you have not read this, what are you waiting for? This was brilliant. But to me, this sounds like a Sarah kind of thriller, because we follow this woman who is basically a self-proclaimed sociopathic murderer, and to prevent herself from killing people, she locks herself in her apartment all day, every day, until she sees something on the internet that causes her to leave her apartment to make a difference for the greater good. It's literally pouring now. Unpopular opinion, but I love rain. It just gives me the perfect excuse to curl up on the couch with a book, and then I find like the noise like really cathartic. Just subtract my dogs barking and perfect ambiance. Watch the power go out. Guys, what if the power goes out? Anyways, I love books that follow a character that you root for, but you feel like you shouldn't root for. I find diving into their psyche so interesting, as they're usually characters that from the outside seem completely normal and like someone you would never expect to be so different in reality. Another thriller that has been calling my name is The Nesting by C.J. Cook, and the cliffside beachy vibe gave me a perfect excuse to include it in the season's TBR. This thriller in question follows a nanny who gets hired to care for these 2 young girls at this cabin where many years prior the mother of these girls actually unalived herself. And when mysterious, unexplainable things happen around the property and the children, the nanny starts to suspect that something more sinister actually took place all those years ago. Y'all know I love creepy children. Not in real life. Get them away from me. But in books, keep them coming. The overall synopsis reminds me a lot of Turn of the Key, one of my favorite Ruth Wares, so I'm hoping that this is similar, but different enough for it to stand on its own. I'm not looking for a copy and paste, but if they have similar vibes, I certainly won't be mad. 7 Days in June by Tia Williams. I have to read this summer, or I won't read it until next summer. I need to read this in June because I am just that crazy. It would feel wrong to me if I didn't. Yeah, I'm one of those people that read November 9th on November 9th. This is a romance between 2 writers who were in a relationship when they were younger, and now have been writing about each other in their books for years, but then something leads them to connect over 7 days and the story unfolds from there. Already loving all the bookish energy. From the reviews I've heard about this book, it seems to be a really beautiful love story, so I can't wait to read that, but I'm also hoping that this talks about the literary world and dives into what it's like to be a writer, because two-writer protagonist. I feel like this has a lot of bookish potential. I had to change the camera battery. Okay, next book. Thank You for Listening by Julia Whelan is giving all the poolside pink lemonade, the best kind of lemonade, might I add. Vibes of my dreams. Instantly after hearing about this romance, initially from Noelle Gallagher, I went out and bought it because of 4 buzzwords, I guess technically 3 buzzwords, used to describe our protagonist. Wait for it. She's a romance book audio narrator. Yes, let me reiterate. This is a romance about a romance book audio narrator. Now, if this wasn't enough meta for you, you could listen to this audibly. Personally, I think I will read it physically as that's my preferred method, but I definitely did think about doing that. I've heard great things from Noelle Gallagher. There's a TBR blurb on the cover. Come on, obviously Sarah's gonna love this. Talking to myself in third person now. Cool. I do have one rollover from my spring TBR here. That is The 22 Murders of Madison May by Max Berry. I've recently been so into thrillers. When am I not? But more so than usual. So I've really had to push myself recently to read other books. I would love to solely read thrillers however long this phase lasts, but I don't want to get burnt out on them and then not pick up a thriller for like months. A thrillerless life does not sound fun. Anyways, all that to say, this is a science fiction, which will be good for when I need to switch things up, as I haven't read much from that genre. I thought I'd also go through the books that I don't own yet but plan on getting my hands on soon and reading. Thrive and Resurrection of Wildflowers. Think it's really funny to make themselves scarce whenever I go to Barnes & Noble to buy them. And I don't know what purpose that is serving besides being a sick joke. That is not funny at all. When I didn't want to immediately read these books, I saw them at the bookstore, but now that I do want to read them, nowhere in sight. And I know some of y'all are like, Sarah, why don't you just buy it on Amazon or read the ebook? But listen, if I know I can get the book in store and I've seen the books in store, I want to find them in store and read the physical copy. The hunt's part of the fun and book shopping for me anyways. I'll find them one day. Maybe. What Happens After Midnight by K.L. Walther comes out June 27th. She is the same author of The Summer of Broken Rules, which I read last summer and really enjoyed. All I really know about this book is that it involves a senior year prank, but I enjoyed K.L. Walther's previous novel enough to want to buy this book. Everyone Here Is Lying by my fave, Sherry Lapina, comes out July 25th. I'm actually really hoping that this will be a book of the month option, because otherwise I probably won't pick it up until the paperback is released. Although Sherry Lapina is one of my favorite authors, I have a lot of other thrillers on my TBR that I really want to get to, and so I don't need to be paying full price for a hardback when I might not even get around to reading it until the paperback is released, and then I could have just bought the paperback and saved myself like $10. Shop smarts, not... Wait, what's the saying? Shop smarter, not harder. I don't know if that applies to this situation, but we're gonna go with it. This lovely shelf right here is where I'll be keeping my TBR this summer, so let's go ahead and shelve them. Yes, those are my reading plans for the summer. I hope today maybe you discovered a book that interests you or that you might want to pick up and read this summer. I love that. I love hearing y'all's thoughts on books. So I think it's time to wrap this video up. Let me know what you are most excited to read this summer down in the comments below. The read I'm most excited about. The Nesting, maybe? I've been really in the mood for thrillers, like I said. So probably The Nesting. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to give it a thumbs up. It really does help me my channel out a lot. You can also comment, interact, subscribe, all that fun YouTube stuff. I'd really appreciate it. I hope you all are having a wonderful day, and I will see you in my next video. Bye.